All right, I have an amazing interview with one of my old clients who has sold a couple agencies in the past, and we talk about a lot of the mistakes he made in running his agency, his SEO agency, and then we go into a lot of different tactics about how he fired his whole team in one meeting, and then a year later he was at 3 million. And what are the three major roles that he brought in to help? What did we pay them? What was the framework that he used for success, and an SEO, and how he really positioned his agency from just being an SEO agency to being a revenue agency for his clients. And that was a huge, huge thing. You're not going to want to miss out this episode. It's really great. Roger did an amazing job. So let's jump into it. Hey, Roger, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. We were reminiscing about how many years ago it was when you came out to Atlanta for a workshop with me. I can't believe how long ago that was. But for the people that don't know who you are, tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about the agency.
Perfect. My name is Roger Bryan. I'm an SEO consultant. My former agency Infusion was just acquired by a company called Growth Foundry. We do enterprise level marketing, a lot of multi-location franchise marketing, a lot of lead gen, SEO, pay-per-click, specializing in healthcare, nonprofits, all across the gambit on the different industries that we work with.
Awesome. Well, let's kind of jump into it, and we're kind of trying something new, and you're the first guinea pig. So welcome to being the first guinea pig. And it's really kind of a thing of like a how-to series to figure out, if you're an SEO agency, because your agency that you sold, was that, talk about how did you specialize in that? Like, because a lot of times people will start an agency, they start, trying to do everything, design, pay-per-click, everything under the sun. What made you how did you pick SEO? Let's start there.
I sold my first website in 1998, and it sold pagers in long distance service. And what I found is then I had never heard of SEO. I don't know that I even had met someone that had ever said the term before. But you were putting on content onto those pages to try to get people to find them. To me, it was no different than making your company AAA septic in the phone book 100 years ago so that people would find you first. It was kind of simple. I got into the auto auction industry after that, and we had a website and we were working with nonprofit organizations. And it was like, well, how do I get us to come up first so more people find us? I didn't get into paid traffic until 2005. So I spent 7 or 8 years just living off of organic traffic, not even knowing that that's what it was called. And I've always I've stayed focused in on it and always hired people to do everything else because I was good at it. It's, to me, my left brain works. It's a science to me. And if you follow certain rules and you do the right competitive analysis, it's easy.
Walk us through some of the team structure of, because obviously you got amazing results for your clients because you were able to sell the agency. So walk us through, how is the team structured?
Yeah, and I've gone through a couple different iterations of this. So my first agency, when I sold it, we had 12 people on the team, but we also had a call center and we're taking in calls for the leads that we were generating. So it was a little bit more robust than just SEO services. Typically, when I think of an SEO agency, let's say sub 7-figure versus 7 to 8-figure, the differences between the two. The sub 7-figure, really, you are the thought leader. You're the one that's looking at the data. You might have somebody else doing the research. You're making strategic decisions and you're allocating resources to certain people on your team. For me, that would be a content team, whether you have full-time or part-time outsource, a link building source that complements your content team. One good web developer. I used to tend to stick to WordPress until I started working with Growth Foundry. Now it's a whole different game with the type of clients that they deal with. And then one person that's going out and doing some type of syndication. So syndication means taking that content and putting it out into places. I've tried all of the different tools out there for social syndication or engagement syndication or even manipulated social signals. a little decent outreach to the right outlets it never worked better. So especially in today's world where everybody uses automation on those things, and I think Google's found most of those. Getting one blog post picked up by one real news article is going to give you 100 times the result of all of the automation tools that are out there. So I think I hit like four different people there.
Yeah.
Now, when you get
Go on.
yeah, when you get into a larger agency and you're working with larger clients, say your retainers are 6 figures or more per year, you're going to have a strategist in there. You're going to have an account manager in there, and they're going to be different. The account manager is dealing with the relationship. The strategist is dealing with the success. You're going to have the same underlying 4 core sections that you're going to deal with, but those teams might be larger and have different points of interaction. I don't like having larger teams for the sake of larger teams, but you have to provide a level of service that demands the type of revenue that comes from working with those larger clients.
And then how was it structured? Like, were you guys broken up into pods? Did, these strategists and account managers, did they report up to an operations director? How was all that, once you get, above the 7-figure mark?
Yeah, and what's nice is I've done this successfully once. I've done it completely wrong once, so I can compare and contrast.
So let's talk about the wrong first,
Okay.
And then get into the right way.
Absolutely. The wrong way is for you as an owner to be in the mix. And there's a period at the end of that statement. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So when I went and I sold my first agency, my team dealt with the customers. I signed checks and I looked at monthly reports. And if my team had a problem, we would talk about it. I had very little interaction with clients other than conferences, or once in a while, maybe I would chat with some of our larger clients. Now, fast forward to my last agency, Infusion, I did everything wrong. I kept hiring kids straight out of college or interns, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I would want to be the point of contact. I didn't trust them enough. I didn't go out and hire the best people. Now, with that being said, one of them now runs Halle Berry's e-commerce business. So they've gone out and done amazing things. And if I would have trusted them more, Infusion would have probably flourished more. But every week I was talking about each and every client to some extent. And it was exhausting. And we never scaled that agency, no matter how hard I tried. We would scale and we would implode. We would scale and we would implode. So, the worst part was I knew what I was doing. I look back now and I'm like, why the F, I don't know if you swear on your podcast, was I doing that? And the nice thing about Growth Foundry is I'm the chief revenue officer. So I'm responsible for growth and strategic alignment within the SEO team between our software and services. So they've taken me away from the thing that I was doing bad in the last agency and given me a chance to excel at what I'm good at.
Yeah. No, you can always cuss.
Okay, good.
So no kids are listening. I look at it as, thinking back at all the agencies I've chatted with and all the agencies we've done, I look at like the first stage is like the doer, right? Like you're doing everything. And then you get to another stage, you're like the barker, like you're barking orders to everybody, but you're still the only one making decisions. And then you get to the delegation stage. And this is where you're delegating and you're trusting people. And then there's one above that where I see only a select few actually make it there. One of our clients, Zach, has actually made it there, where he's starting to transition, out of being the CEO and more to, the chairman. And it's exciting to get to that leadership stage where now all you're doing is coming up with the vision and direction, passing it to your leadership team, and that's it. And you're hands off. And that's total freedom, where you can scale, you have the freedom, you have profitability, like let everybody else worry about all that shit.
Absolutely.
Because there's always shit. It just matters who's doing the shit. Right? There's always, like, I guess we use another analogy of like cleaning out the barn. There's always someone that has to, take the shit out. Like it just doesn't evaporate. So let's talk about kind of the right way that you've seen it. Now you've kind of talked about like why, you guys were going through that roller coaster, right? The ups and downs, because that's where you're focused. What would you have done? What do you think the better model for an SEO agency is?
Yeah, and it focus is almost too simplistic of a word, but when you focus in on a specific type of client and a specific service with a specific deliverable, that problem kind of works itself out over time if you allow it, of course. If you're arrogant and your ego is this big, you're going to make that problem exist forever. But when I look at those ebbs and flows, I could see them dictated on the partnerships that we were in and the service that we were providing. And it was different enough each time that it created that need for like a recalibration of the underlying offer and then the implementation, the systems and procedures. And that is not a way to scale and grow an agency. When you get to that point where you've got a dependable, predictable revenue stream from the service that you provide, and you know that every client you sell it to has a 100% chance of success, then you have this model that people can go implement. And there's bumps, there's hurdles, there's hiccups. It's not perfectly easy every time, but you can overcome them better if you're working towards the same strategic goal each time. So starting with that focus element is going to make things so much easier.
And how is the team structured the right way? So, a lot of the agencies listening be like, all right, man, that sounds like me, Roger. Like, man, I'm doing everything. I'm the doer, I'm the barker. Like, we're in this red zone here. So how do we
Yeah,
get to the yellow and the green?
the campaign manager is a big part of it. You can call them client success managers, campaign managers, cat herders, whatever you want to call them. But they're the face. They're the ones that's talking to the client. Whether some large clients you have weekly calls with, most clients you have monthly calls with, and their responsibility is to gather up all of the information and make sure that as they're going into that call that they're presenting success, not problems. And if they're focusing in on that, then they spend the whole month building up their data, looking at the reports, making sure everything's going well. And then most importantly, we've got 10 data points that define success for every campaign. They go in and they look, well, is this one wrong? Is this one off? Why is this one going down? And they're talking to the team. They're talking to the people running paid traffic. They're talking to the people that are building links or writing content and saying, why is this data point off and what are we going to do to improve it? And their questions are what drives success from the underlying team doing the work.
And these people, are they acting as an account manager and a PM, or are these two different people? Because there's a lot of people struggle with, all right, and I have my own kind of 2 cents on that too. So like, are they the same person? They different? They the unicorns? What are they?
The unicorns are nice. I have one that I wish I could get back. They are managing both. Now, I've scaled up to right around $5 million. I don't know at $10 million if that dynamic would change. I'm going to assume that it will. And with the work that we're doing at Growth Foundry and the trajectory that we have, you do have an SEO department that's responsible for SEO that reports up to the campaign manager now. But the campaign manager still needs to reach down at certain points and find when things need to be done. Now, there's a head of SEO, there's a head of Facebook, and there's a head of Google marketing. And then there's a head of IT and software development here. So I'm new into that with them, and I see that different structure. And it's interesting for me. I'm not an I'm a chief revenue officer. I'm not involved in any of that now. So as I bring my clients over and I bring over relationships, I'll probably see how I fall in that mix.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I always saw, like, I guess it would work really well for where you guys were with, if they had really good SOPs to follow.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
but I guess you would have to probably find that account manager that really understood this and understood the strategy and could actually probably challenge the client. I mean, that's kind of why a lot of us as agency owners, we've kind of fall into that role, because we know exactly how to help them. And like, we're not order takers. And if you hire like an order taker, you're just going to get, it's like you're getting a Big Mac. Like, you know what to expect with a Big Mac, but you're not getting that most amazing burger that, like, you start smelling it and your mouth starts watering and foaming, right? Like, we can like taste that burger. And that's really what we want those account managers. So I presume that, and you learned your lesson from the first one where you probably hired experienced people. So where did you find these people? And then, what was the kind of the levers that you would pull in order to make sure that they were right? And how did we move them up?
Yeah, it's interesting because it was not a smooth process. So I started my last agency summer of 2005. And I remember coming in, it was April of 2007. and we were growing exponentially. We were in one niche, we had one product offering. It was a home run. We were trying to scale, and it was just the wheels were coming off. Like everything was wrong. So I walked in one day, and it just, the tension was there. One girl in the office started an argument with me, and I'm like, you know what? That's it. Everyone just leave. And the entire company was fired. And then I spent the next 6 months going out and finding the right people. At that time, I was based in Washington, D.C., and I don't recommend that anyone walk in and fire their entire staff in one day, but it was a year in the making. And we went from that year doing 1.2, and remember, that was the beginning of the year. The next year we did 3.2. So it was the right decision to make. Now, there was a lot of fresh out of college. In fact, the girl that I brought in, her name's Amy, to run marketing for us at the macro level. I sold that company in 2012. 9 years later, she's still there running marketing for that company, and they've grown exponentially since then. The office manager that I hired in that time frame, still there. The general manager that's running the company since I sold it was my GM. So those right people helped me get to the point, scale, sell, and then they continue to run the business for the investors that bought it. Where did I find them? I plugged into the universities. I would go and do the job fairs, but I wasn't looking for like interns. I was looking for the people that had gone out and done something. In 2005, 2007, when you're trying to hire digital marketers, there wasn't a lot that they could have done. So if they had a LinkedIn profile and they were doing any type of content creation online, they were first in line.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were hired designers, like you didn't have to and this is where I kind of failed at school, right? Like I didn't really kind of create any side hustle while I was in school. But the people that we would bring in, if we brought them in right out after they got their degree, which wasn't really a requirement with us, they had to have that side hustle.
Yeah,
and they were already having a portfolio that they could show us. They weren't just like, this isn't the first pony, the first rodeo of what I was trying to say, right? So I was like, first pony, like, where did we get a pony? Like,
I don't know. You got cows behind you, so maybe the pony's not too far away.
That might be it. Maybe it was because I was watching Seinfeld, and when Seinfeld was at the table, he was like, "I don't like anybody that has a pony." And then the old lady was like, "I had a pony. Why don't you like me?" So maybe I think of that. I don't know. Listening on the show, make sure you guys comment. Go to the website and tell me if you have a pony or not. Or
we won't judge.
We won't judge you. But getting back to, I don't even know where we were actually going since the pony. I guess that's where I show you my ADD, like, pony, what? Go over here.
You took me for a ride on your pony, and now we're lost in the woods.
We are so screwed. We were talking about hiring out of college. So I like what you were talking about. Like they already had, the expertise there. They were already doing it. How did you after you evaluated that, what was kind of the first task that you had them do to make sure that they're right? Because I'm sure you probably hired some people that, like, oh man, that was a wrong hire, following this method when you reset the whole company. Because that's fascinating. Like, that's so fascinating. You come in, everybody get out, and then a year later, you bring in all new people. So let's talk about that.
So then a couple different iterations here too. With the last agency, and this was good or bad, the first 30 days that someone was hired, they would go through a whole set of tests, whether that be the digital marketer test, some of the HubSpot certifications, and only about 70% of them would be able to complete the first set of tests. So a lot of them, it was just a natural, you know what, if you can't pass these tests, you can't work for us. Including my brother. He tried to come work for us. He couldn't pass the test. He didn't get to work for us.
That's probably a good thing. You never hire friends or family.
I hired in other businesses before. I don't even know why I tried. But that was a decent way. So you had something to show me. Now, can you do what we do? I had tried in the past letting them launch a campaign. That was always a disaster because I didn't want to spend money on my stuff. I wanted to spend money on customer stuff. I had one guy, I'm like, you have a $250 a week budget to generate leads. He spent like $4,000 in the first week and didn't generate any, and it was on my credit card. That was when I learned that wasn't going to work anymore. So every person's going to be a little different. Now we're trying to hire people that are coming from other agencies that have been in the game for a little while. We don't have the luxury of time to train up from the beginning. If you can come in, maybe there's a little bit of retraining, but we need to put you in a role and we need you to go. and then we'll figure out how to make it better and how we can scale. I learned that by watching one agency grow from like nothing to like $100 million over the last 7 years. And I've worked with them on a couple projects. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to say it's a good or a bad thing, but most of the projects I worked with them on failed. But the same people that were working on those projects 5 years ago are still there. And I bet you they're better now, now that they're a 9-figure agency. But it's a choice. They chose to just take on every client, take on every project, and then they found their niche once they hit scale. Again, not recommending that, but that's just another dynamic that I've seen people do.
Yeah, I probably know who they are.
Yeah, most people
they
do,
will
I
be
think.
nameless.
Yeah.
But let's talk about when you reset the whole darn team. Who was the first 3 people and why that you brought on? Like, or the roles?
Yeah, the first role was the office manager because I needed someone to handle like the HR side. Obviously, if you go in and you fire everybody, you probably aren't thinking about HR too much. So they came in and their job was to help me systematize everything that I was doing in the business. From the way the clients were coming in, we had to have like insurance policies in every state that we were working in because of the space we were in, getting that done. Then the general manager to hire both divisions of the business because there was a service and there was an e-commerce business. By the way, I didn't fire anybody in the e-commerce business side. They were fine. This was just the office and service staff. And then I needed someone that knew marketing and sales a little bit. I didn't expect them to go out and sell. I was the one going to the conferences. I was the one in the booths. I was the one building the relationships. And I enjoyed doing that, taking people out to dinner, buying them drinks, and like life's not that hard. And when she came in and got to work, and then she started managing our outsourced vendors and our content teams. And at that time, we were using a third party to do our paid traffic. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. Like, why did I ever try to do all this myself? But finding that person's hard because, especially today, because in 2007, entrepreneurship wasn't as hot as it is now. And people weren't as willing to take as much risk as they are now. So there's that balancing act of, if you're going to find that person now, you're going to need to pay them very, very well. You can't ask them to bootstrap with you as you're growing this thing. You're going to have to give them all the money, even if it means you're taking less to grow the business, because what's stopping them from going out and doing it themselves? It's not that hard anymore.
I love that you said pay them what they're worth, because there's a lot of people that I see, they're like, well, just we'll give you equity. I'm like, no, like, you believe in this, right? Do it all yourself. But like you were saying, it's very easy for other people to do it. So walk me through, like, we don't know who they were. So can you walk us through, like, what were you paying the office manager? What did you pay the GM? What did you pay? Like, because I think, or like, what would you pay right now? I guess let's do that since we're in 21.
So right now, and I'm in Ohio and our agency's based in Pennsylvania, not in a big city. So we do have a little bit of luxury there. You're not going to get quality under 52 a year. And this is even people working remote.
For an office manager.
Oh, are we talking about people now?
Well, let's talk about the office manager, the GM, and the marketer, okay. The 3 roles, and then you can go into the other roles too.
Yeah, so right now we pay our office manager, she probably makes around, like, the walls are thin here, so probably in the 46 to 48 range. We do, it's interesting. I'm trying to not get sidetracked. We've got 3 service businesses here. We have 2 20,000 square foot buildings here and employ 65 people. So it's a little different. That's not agency work. On the agency side, I don't even know what they pay anyone yet, which is interesting. I think about it.
Well, go back to like when you hired those 3 people.
Those 3 people all started at 52.
52. Wow. Even the
2007.
GM.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So what, like, if you had to do that now in 21,
it'd probably be 80-ish.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to give someone a ballpark.
Context. Yeah.
Right.
Well, now there's a part to that too, that no one stayed at 52. Within a year, you were dramatically different. In fact, at 90 days, things started changing, especially for the marketer who was handling all the client business. You figure if she was managing millions of dollars a year in revenue, I think she was getting dropped like 10K every quarter, as long as our numbers were going up. And I'm sure she's a 6-figure earner now, having been there so long.
Yeah. And that's the crucial thing is like, pay them a fair salary. That's what we always did. Fair salary, and then do on bonuses on performance. quarterly, and you'll get them above, rather than pay someone. Some people will come in for a GM and be like, I want 200K. I'm like, sure. Like, then I go like, crap in one hand and wish another, see which one fills up first.
You know what's really interesting on this? My first mentor was a gentleman named Patrick Morselli. He was really old school Italian guy. He's about 80 now. And he owned the Greater Cleveland Auto Auction, which was the first real job that I had after the military. And he kind of trained me on business. If it wasn't for him, I'd have probably always had the employee mindset coming from where I came from. But he told me, he's like, the salary that you pay someone is what keeps them at their desk. And he's like, the money that you pay them after that is what you pay them to help you earn more. And he's like, not everybody wants more. Some people will take their salary and they'll sit at a desk and they'll plug, plug, plug. But there's a few of them in there that will bust their ass to make you money, and you'll compensate them in return. And I've had that mentality. I mean, that was 2001 when I first started working for him. I was 23 years old. And that and something about cows going down and having sex in a field, those two sayings have always stuck with me.
You just keep looking at the cows behind me.
I know, I can't. But it really was. He did have this thing about patience that had cows having sex, but it was a whole horror deal.
I kind of want to go there. I kind of want to go there, but I don't, because it was such a good, like, I loved the saying that he said about, like, people stay there because of what you pay them, but they'll make you money for what you pay them above that. That's brilliant. I love that. Let's talk about, was there a framework that you guys use at the agency in order to get people success? Because a lot of times I talk to some agencies that they're just kind of winging it, and they really don't have a framework for, and specifically, for rankings. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and you know what? It comes down to a deliverable. So what we had then is the compelling offer with a guaranteed deliverable. So we did nonprofit fundraising. So I could walk into a Goodwill and I could say, hey, I want to help you raise money by doing car donations online. Here's the deal. You're never going to pay me a penny. I'm going to invest all of my own money in advertising. If it works, we're going to split the profit 50-50 after expenses. If it doesn't work, you just wash your hands of us and I walk away, and never a problem. The offer dictated the implementation strategy. Over time, we had a campaign for Goodwill, we had a campaign for Red Cross, we had a campaign for Salvation Army. They were different enough to be representative of the brand, the markets, and the style of marketing that they were willing to do. But every Goodwill I walked into, and there was 140 Goodwills at the time, and we were working with 52 of them. So we were almost at 50% of Goodwills in the US were working with us. We made that offer, and then it was a dependable, predictable model. We knew you set up a landing page, you launch a separate website, you set up a landing page on our site, you set up a separate website, you set up a landing page on their website, you rank all three of them at the top of Google so that no matter where they donate, it's coming through us. And then you layer on paid traffic for broad keyword terms. And it's the same keywords every time, just in a different market. And then you adjust your bids relative to the competition in that market. And that was it. I mean, there's intricacies of how you got them to rank, but we're going back to 2008. If you sneezed, your website's ranked. It's a little bit more complicated today.
Yeah, it was so frustrating back then.
I know. Well, I had 8 websites on the first page of Google ranking for Goodwill car donation. You could not donate a car in the United States without it coming through us. And 3 of them are still on the first page today. I mean, that's all you had to do to win. I mean, that was a 7-figure ranking campaign right there.
I like that you had the success, right? And that's a lot of times people, what are some of the gotchas that you've learned with that? Because I love that strategy. That's very easy for them to commit, and especially of how you phrased it too, which I elegantly picked up on. I was like, well, we'll split the profits after our expenses. So, like, probably it was maybe they were getting 30%, but their 30% is better than 0, which was really good. So walk us through some of the gotchas there.
So some of the gotchas there is at a macro level. The only way that a SOP or a campaign strategy works is if you have a defined outcome. Like, you can't go into SEO with the idea that your job is to rank websites. You've already failed if you even start at that. In fact, internally in our organization, we don't use the term SEO, we use organic revenue optimization. Our job is to deliver revenue to our customers. So any task has to be correlated to a data point that leads to revenue. And if somebody starts talking off tangent about this thing, okay, how does this get me to revenue? 9 times out of 10, that'll bring them back. And honestly, they'll realize, you know what, I don't even need to be worrying about this because it's not revenue related. It's just busy work. And so much of what I see SEO professionals doing is busy work. They read something in a Facebook group. They want to go try it to see if it works, but they don't sit down and write out, okay, how is this going to get me from where I am today to more revenue? Because the client's paying me for revenue. Very rarely does a client play for rank. And I say rarely because there are some doctors and lawyers that will actually pay for it because their ego says they just need to outrank the guy down the street. They don't care about money. They're few and far between, but they do exist.
And they're bad clients. They're
They
really
are
bad
bad clients. They stick with you until they get there, then they fire you, and then they yell and scream at you 6 months later when they're not there anymore. So you know that they're a short ride, 6-month or 12-month client, which isn't what you should be going after anyways. If you have a dependable, predictable model that leads to revenue, your scaling capabilities completely open up. If you're chasing a different result for each client on a different traffic strategy, on a different type of offer, you will continue to be stressed out. You will never scale, no matter how much you try to put SOPs and people in place. It's that single, dependable, predictable, deliverable that makes business scalable and repeatable.
I love that you focused on, the revenue, because a lot of times an SEO agency will be like, we'll get you on the first page, we'll get you ranked, but you're doing things after that to control that, because a lot of times, even with a pay-per-click agency, right, we'll be like, let's use dentists. They're a great example of a very hard client to work with, right? Like, we send a ton of leads to them, but their dumb staff never answers the phone. They never get back, and they're like, the leads are shit, right? But you're kind of taking that out of going like, we'll take it to here, by picking the right market too, right? Like,
yeah, it's very important.
That's important. You pick a really bad market, you have to be resourceful and figure it out. Like, I'm sure someone's going to figure out, and I have some clients that really rock the dentist world, but they are a little bit more challenging. But I like how you did the solution.
The big thing that we needed to do in the nonprofit space, and we're repeating now in the space that we're attacking right now, is that we started answering the phones for them. So we set up a call center and answered the phones, got all of the information, and went right into their scheduling system and put people in. It's not that hard to do. It's not that expensive to do. It can actually just be a couple $100s a month. And if you've got multiple clients in the same space, that's nothing relative to the overall value that it creates. And it completely eliminated, like I remember one of my first clients when I moved back to the Ohio area after selling my agency, because I wasn't allowed to work in the nonprofit space for a certain number of years, was a dentist. And to me, it was a breeze. He went from, said he was getting 5 phone calls, of course, no tracking in place. So like 1 week, I generated like 76 phone calls. You know how many he answered? 3. So I drove to his office an hour away, and I went in and I talked to his secretary or assistant, and I realized she wasn't there to answer the phones. And I was like, you know what? We should probably just stop spending your money because we're both wasting our time. But now we see, like, we're scaling really large in the septic industry right now because we have the largest residential septic company in the state of Ohio. And
is it a shitty client?
It is a shitty line of work. And I get crappy jokes like that all the time.
Oh, I had to. Like, literally, everybody listening was like, when is Jason going to say shit from this?
And the first key was setting up a call center. We have quadrupled the number of conversions by adding in the phone calls. That means we didn't change anything with the marketing, but 4 times more end result just by setting up a call center. And we use answerconnect.com. They're great. They're inexpensive, sort of. We're kind of at that point now where we're asking ourselves if we want to have our own people doing this, but 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you get a live voice if you call for services through any of our websites or partners. And in most cases, we can direct schedule. Not all of them. We're working on that.
I could imagine the call center be like, you got shit. We'll help you with your shit.
Maybe I should throw that up on our tagline. We just bought septictank.com. So we're going really heavy into growing this business.
The tagline should be like, we help you with your shit. Sorry.
I don't know if that'll fly with like the Facebook mods or anything like that.
I know. But I got a shitty
Hey, when
mind.
the team did their brainstorming under taglines for septictank.com, don't worry, a lot of those came out.
Oh, I'm sure. Like, that would be such a fun project to be on.
Our engineers call themselves poop inspectors. So.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, that's awesome. That should be the title of the podcast. Let's talk about your book that's coming out, or it's already out now. So, yep. Local SEO Secrets. Tell us a little bit about it.
So we've been putting out content for a long time, and I'm pretty vocal in a lot of the Facebook groups that I'm in. We decided to take our top blog posts and put them together into a book, and then reformat them around a specific goal. And then I reached out to a couple people that I knew in the space that might be better at things. Like we got one guy to come in and talk about GMBs, another one to come in and talk about the Google My Business or Google Guarantee program, one on e-commerce landing page optimization, and one on PR for SEO. And we put them all together and just kind of packaged it so that we could give our customers a primer on SEO. So if you read this book, you're probably not going to be ready to do enterprise SEO, but you're going to be able to have a conversation with us about the different tactics that we're doing. It's the same thing. I published a book called Data Driven Marketing in 2017, and it was written for the Microsoft partners that we were working with. It was like, hey, last year we generated $56 million in sales leads for Microsoft partners. Here's how we did it. Do you want to do it? Here's the book. It sold 10,000 copies on its own, but it was never really designed to be like a revenue stream from sales. It's, hey, I want to educate my clients because educated customers actually stay around longer. I always hear agency people, I don't want to make them too smart because they might fire me. And you know what? That happens from time to time. We had a customer paying us $250,000 a year for 4 years. And they're finally like, you know what, Roger, we got this. We'll come to you for one-off consulting. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. I just trained a multi-billion-dollar company on how to do their own SEO. It took 4 years. They paid me $1 million, but they moved on, and that'll happen.
Yeah, everything transitions. It's kind of like when I work with people, like even yourself, like you bake it in, you help them out, and then they transition, they graduate, and they get to the next level, and they sell. You know, it's just, it all happens, and everybody should celebrate that. Not like, I always hate when I hear, well, I don't want to teach them everything I know. I'm like, then what are they paying you for? Like, what are you even helping them for? Like, why are you throttling it? Like, literally, as much pressure as they can take, give it to them. Mm-hmm. And then they'll be your biggest advocates when they have the success, because that's why we're doing it. Right?
The head of marketing at that healthcare organization had actually worked with me at a different company before that and brought me in because he's like, I like the way that you teach what you're doing. You don't just do it. And you know what? He left there and went to another company, and guess what? They hired me too. And another person from that healthcare company texted me over the weekend. He's like, hey, I'm at a new organization. These are the problems I have. Can you come in and help consult? You actually get more business by training your customers to fire you than you do less.
Yeah, exactly. Give us one really killer thing in the book, and then we'll tell everybody where they can get the book.
Perfect. If there's one killer thing from the overall strategy in here, is like flip it upside down. Like, don't try to read it upside down, you get a headache. But SEO isn't about ranking websites. It's about generating revenue. So the one strategy that I tell everyone before you even start SEO is implement call tracking. Now, again, this is local SEO. So we're usually talking about a conversion path that is calls. I probably wouldn't work with a pizza shop. I can't track the revenue that comes in from that. Implement call tracking and figure out where you are before you do anything else. It only takes 30 days. If your customer's telling you they're getting 50 phone calls a week, you implement call tracking, they're probably getting 5. And you're going to have a real benchmark set now. You're also going to listen to, do they answer their calls? If they get 100 calls and they answer 5, you've got to fix that. There's so many things you have to fix in order to make SEO successful. And we charge maybe $1,500 or $2,500 a month for our initial audit, roadmap, and data capture. But after that, you will know for certain if you can help that person. And what agencies chase money, most of them do. And it's why their lives are so stressful and so miserable, because they'll take money from anyone. Be willing to say no if the data doesn't tell you you can make them successful. Travis Sago has a great thing. He's like, he'll only take on someone if he's willing, and it goes back to poop, to give them a bucket of poop that they can dump on his head if he doesn't make them successful. And knowing that, he only works with a certain number of people. And the ones that work with him brag about working with him. But pretend there's a bucket of poop sitting next to you. Don't take that customer on if they're going to dump that bucket on your head.
I love it. I love that. There's so many different things to break down, but I love how you were like, just do one thing to see if they're going to be an amazing client, and do that in early on rather than invest all your time and you getting paid a great deal from them, and then you're like, this is miserable. You're going to lose your team, right? They're going to get bad clients, and it's just a constant roller coaster ride. But if you do it and you reset it and you think, how can I make sure, and even going to the prospect, I want to make sure you're good for us. You know, it goes back to an interview I did with Seth Godin where he was like, look, there's this one agency that doesn't want to hire over 50 people. And if they only have 50 people, there's only so many clients they can take on. And they tell the clients, if you ever do anything, if you dump a pile of poop on us, we're firing you. Right? So
It works. And
talking about shit the whole episode.
Doing that too.
You
Always
what?
back to poop.
Always. See, you like how I came back to the poop. That's what I did. That's what I do. Where can the audience go check out the book?
I'll give you a link. They can go over to rcbryan.com/local SEO book. And I'll just leave it up for a limited amount of time, but they can actually get the digital copy for free. So we took the whole book, we turned it into like a course format on Teachable. And what's nice is there's conversations going on in there. There's been tweaks, there's been additions. Some chapters have been dropped to the bottom because people didn't find them useful. Some chapters have been moved up. We've redone some of the intro stuff, things that you can't do once you have a hard copy. But there's a great community building around it of SEO professionals and amateurs, just learning and trading skill sets and swapping ideas in order to create the best strategies for people.
Awesome. Well, this has been amazing. Everybody go to that URL, go to it now and go check it out. And is there anything, Roger, I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the audience?
No, but I think we did 300 million cubic feet of poop last year. You forgot to ask me about that.
All right. Well, if all you listening, you enjoyed this episode and you want to stay away from getting the bag of poop thrown on you, you need to be surrounded by amazing agency owners. And we're only looking for 5 agency owners that are over 500,000 and under 20 million. If that is you and you guys want to add multiple millions on, we want to invite you to go check out the Agency Mastermind. This is where we share the strategies that people are crushing it on. And we'll be able to see the bags of poop that you can throw away. So make sure you go to, you guys can tell it's not a script because I'm putting poop in there, but make sure you guys go to digitalagencyelite.com and request an invite, put in your application. And if I feel that we can help you out and you'll be amazing for the mastermind, we'll invite you to come on and so you can stay away from the shit. All right. Until next time, have a swank day.